Life is not about finding yourself. It's about becoming who you are. So we stare at a blank canvas with a palette of choices that lead us to becoming who we are. Every stroke with a brush is a life experience that shapes us into becoming through the guidance of our spirit, fire, our soul. Now, that's a revelation I walked into when I visited Zimbabwe in December, and to all my Zimbabwean family, Maswera say. And I even went a little bit further to my ancestral land, South Africa. Salibonani, my South African family. Well, this revelation comes at just right after I had just reached a space in my career where I'd achieved everything that I hoped to achieve. I had started Inside Fitness, and we had ran for about 7 years with success, even voted the face of mental health for Frisco in 2018. And we had gotten so many recognitions, awards, and now I was at a point where I was being asked to come and do various things to help the field. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I just started feeling like something is missing, that there was a next step to be taken. But I wasn't so sure what this next step was going to be. So I decided to take this trip in form of a sabbatical, but it was to visit my family in Zimbabwe and South Africa. So I just said I'll take advantage of this trip and use it as a way to find out what that next space was. And what I discovered as I was sitting one day, I think I was with my brother at the shopping center, the Meberrain shopping center, and I was watching kids from the high school that I went to, many years ago, as they were walking down in their little blue blazers, and they just gave me memories when I was that young and going to high school. Now, what kind of stuck out for me in this moment, I looked at their school badge, and on the school badge, on the blazer, there was a school motto, which is written in Latin and meaning esse quam videri, translated to English meaning it's better to be than to seem to be. And this just started echoing in my head. It's better to be than to seem to be. And in that moment, a light bulb went off and I say to myself, hey, I just need to become me. I have been living life with tenets of me and walking around and speaking and teaching, and those are parts of me. But the actual part of becoming me is what I'm doing today and standing here, which means I be myself and I walk with other people and just lead them and help them to finding themselves, the things that I've learned along my journey. So I looked at myself and I say, this journey that I've taken all these years is about becoming. Now, let's go ahead and define what becoming is. Now, becoming, and this is a definition that I came with, is the process of discovering. Okay, you walk into this world, a complete set, and you have to discover. And then you have to accept your purpose for being created. And then you have to align your mind and body to serve that purpose in order for you to become the individual that can manifest your purpose. So that's the definition that I came with. Now, why go through this process of becoming? Now, let's think about this. As a young man, I was always attracted to great leaders. I remember looking at reading books, biographies of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and Abraham Lincoln, just to name a few that came off my head. And what fascinated me about these people is they had found a way to become themselves, to become the leaders they were created to be, and to give something of value to humanity. So that always stuck with me. So I figured out that all of us were created for a purpose. Everybody is here for a reason to give a gift to humanity. And our job is to find out what that gift is. And your gift that you bring to us is supposed to move the human agenda forward. And your job on this earth is to figure out what is that gift. And also the next reason for why becoming is to live a life that's fulfilling, that gives back to you. I have come across a lot of people who do jobs they do not enjoy, people who live lives they are unhappy with, and they end up being depressed. After 20,000 plus hours of doing therapy sessions with people, I realized that, hey, this is actually an epidemic. And, I'm sure now we're all familiar with what a pandemic is because we just came from one. So this living a life that's fulfilling is one of those things that will help you plug into the reason why you were created, because you will get that back when you start living on purpose. So that to me is an incentive of becoming, because I've worked jobs I did not like and did not enjoy, and I was crying driving too. So now I know that for a fact that I would rather live life as me because I'm being fulfilled. And the third reason for becoming is that whenever you're not operating in the place that you were created to, or serving humanity in that capacity, it always leads to some form of abuse to yourself. And because, for example, let's look at somebody working a job that they hate. Every day they have to shut down their natural instincts and natural impulses, go to work, and that Sunday evening talk when you're feeling that anxiety at the pit of your stomach, saying, I gotta do this for rent, I gotta pay my bills, I got children to raise. That there is self-abuse, because you are shutting down certain parts of yourself in the hope that you're gonna live a fulfilling life. So that's personal abuse. So imagine, just imagine living a life without that, where there's no Sunday anxiety, where you are just looking forward to every day, and days don't mean anything. And hey, it is possible to live outside of time, because I've experienced it. I've experienced the shift. All right. Now, some of the things I learned about the process of becoming. Becoming is a process. Now, the best way I can explain this, let's take our imagination caps on. Our childhood imagination, let's switch it on. Let's go ahead and think about, I thought about a seed. Let's just picture an apple tree. I love apples, so that's gonna have to do today. So just picture the seed of an apple tree. And in that seed, there is all the potential to be a tree, an apple tree in that seed. It's all locked up in there. Now that seed, it has the destiny to become a tree. So there is a tree that's stored in that little seed. That is like us when we come to this earth. We're like a seed full of potential to become who we were created to be and to serve the human agenda, to move it forward. Now, like that tree, the seed has to be planted in order for it to start growing as a little offshoot, and then it's going to start producing fruit, it's going to start producing all these things. So it's a phase-by-phase approach. So much like us, we're born a seed, and our life, the journey of life is to realize who we are. Now, life gives us that process where we have to be pressured and where we have to grow into and discover, as we defined earlier, as we discover who we are inside. And that process is like that tree growing. Now, we can only grow into what we were created to do, because some people are football players, some people are musicians, some people are teachers. So all that potential is stored in that seed. So they have the potential to only become what they were created to. Anytime we try to cross and try to do what we were not created to, that's that abuse that we're talking about, because you're trying to expect yourself to do things that you were not created to do. Then that creates an issue. And sometimes when we do that, that self-abuse comes across as depression, anxiety, dissatisfaction in life, and angst and all those, and sometimes self-doubt, insecurities, all those things, because you are now trying to operate, in what you're not supposed to be operating in. I was born to do this. This is why I was created, to walk with people in the most difficult situations and to be a leader, a guide, a light in different dark moments of people's lives. I was designed in a way I can consume information. I can read 4 books a month, study journals, and I can retain this information. I can go to each page and I can reflect on all these things. And because I was created to do this. Now, if you tell me to say, let's go play soccer, I'm gonna give you some type of soccer thing, but it ain't gonna be all that. It's gonna look like I got 2 left legs and no coordination. I will stress myself, and I may have imposter syndrome that the coach is gonna realize that this guy ain't no good. Go sit down and, let's let someone else be. I'll be a permanent bench warmer because I'll never get into play because I'm not operating where I'm supposed to be. Now, all right, let me focus. Let me move on now. Let's talk about the process. The process is a process of becoming and growing into something. Everything that's going to end up in its end does not begin in its end state. It has to grow and develop into its end state. For that apple, from the seed state to an apple fruit producing tree, it takes about 8 to 10 years, and even sometimes a whole lot more, for it to become fruitful. And such is like for us. Our lives are a process we have to go through, and each stage adds something of value to our lives. So that is the process of us growing and becoming. So anytime you start expecting yourself to beat a cycle, to move forward faster and produce fruit faster, you are not being kind to yourself. A tree that produces fruit before its time, they actually take the fruit and they throw it away because it's no good. It's gonna be bitter, it's gonna be because it's out of season. So you have to pace yourself and allow yourself to go through the process. The process is not delaying you, it is actually helping you and slowing you down to take time so that you reach full maturity, so that whenever the fruit comes, you are able to handle it and able to work through it. Doing what I'm doing today, I wouldn't have been able to handle this 15 years ago, but I had to work through the process. Even 10 years ago, I had to work through the process to know how to run a business, and I had to work for people who helped me develop leadership qualities, understanding business acumen, and I became a consultant in between, and all these things helped me to become. But the most important thing about the process is that for it to initiate and for it to start is that we have to dare to be different and unique in order to become that which we were to be created. It takes a lot of courage, guys, a lot of courage to walk as you in this world, in a world that seems to celebrate uniformity and oneness, and into a pseudo reality that we have this online existence that everybody is uniform, has the same thoughts, has the same attitudes, and that's utopia, because that requires you to kill yourself again. And when I say kill yourself, I mean kill who you are, stifle who you are, not physically kill yourself. It slows down and rejects who you are in order to fit into a uniform thinking. Those who've been successful and have been able to disrupt history, have been able to walk against the grain and stand in the truth of who they knew to be, connect with their purpose, and go ahead and fulfill that desire, and even sometimes denying themselves the rights to live, and they were open to death so that they could even fulfill their process. All right. Now, as we said, it's a journey. It's a journey to go on and become. It took a lifetime. It's a process. And we hear this word, a journey, a lot nowadays. A journey means I have to keep on walking. I have to walk to become. Now, why take this journey at all? The purpose of taking this journey to becoming is that it reveals who you are. As I was talking about that world where we're trying to create uniformity, life is designed to put pressure on you, and it's designed to expose you to who you are. And whenever we refuse to accept who we are, and when we try to conform, we're actually doing ourselves a disservice and an injustice, because we are denying a natural process. I have 5 siblings, and boy, could we now be different. We are all different individuals, but from the same mother, same father, raised in the same house. But because we were raised to be who we were individually, and we weren't trying to be uniform, that is what makes us get along well and support each other. So life naturally is designed to reveal who God created you to be, who you came to this earth to be. And you have to pay attention at every turn. And remember, with the introduction, every brush stroke is designed to reveal who you are so you can discover and so that you can become. But what are you going to become if you are not willing to take the process and to be unique and to be uniform? Because you're going to be like everybody else. And also, the good thing about this journey of becoming, you actually learn about your strengths, and it exposes your weaknesses, because being aware of your weaknesses is actually not a bad thing, because your weaknesses are actually things you need to be aware. And this is where you're going to need other people, and need other people who are stronger in those areas to support you in becoming. And that's that vulnerability that we need to life that makes us even stronger, that makes us do more work, and that keeps us in touch with ourselves, because we are not a one size stop or one shop stop for everything, So these are the advantages of taking this journey towards becoming. But I've learned a few things on the nature of this journey. I remember growing up in Zimbabwe. I always had dreams and ambition. I was this 15-year-old kid with dreams and ambition. And I remember my real first leadership role and my ambition, where I was trained how to be a leader. I was elected the youth chairman at age 16 of a youth group. And I was the youngest in this group, but I became the chairman. And I was able to start leading, and boy, do you learn a lot about people when you start leading. And in my high school, eventually, when I was a senior in high school at Ellis Robbins Boys High, and to my Foch boys, hey, how you doing? All right. I was able to be elected a senior prefect, and that's another leadership role that I had. So right after graduating high school, I went straight to work, and I worked as an accounting assistant, and all these were great things. But at every turn and unction, I always had that gut feeling that it's time to move on. It's time for change, which we all do have, but sometimes we don't listen to that unction. But mine has always been on level 10, the volume, the loudest. You know, that cartoon volume where it says, "Are you nuts?" That's how mine was, as loud as that. So after going to work, I worked in Zimbabwe for 3 years, and I was excited as an accountant. I was making money, but that sound started happening again and talking to me that it's time to become. It's time for more. So I decided to say, you know what? I'll go to the United States, be with my sister, go to college. So applied for college and decided to come to the United States in January 2000. And all I had was $100 and a heart full of dreams. And 20 hours later, in the plane, I was in the United States. And boy, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was excited. And you remember this was just right at the top of the 90s, and it was all MTV, everything. And I say, we are here in the United States. My life is, I made it. And then I was excited to see what the US is all about. Remember landing at Dallas Fort Worth International Airport, and I think you can see a little bit of Dallas behind me. And I remember driving through the city, looking at the skyscrapers and everything, and I was like, my God, this is the life. I had not seen anything like this until I made it to my destination in Corsicana, Texas. That's when I got my first reality check on the journey to become. This was a small town that was in 50 miles south of Dallas. It looked like if they were shooting a Western movie, they wouldn't need to change much of the scene of the city. It just was ready. Now, the town was built along just one highway. And the highlight of the town was a Kmart. Yes, I say the Kmart, and the college itself. And it became clear that they only showed the good parts of the college when they advertised this to us. Now, as I looked at this, my heart sank a little bit as I thought that this was going to be my home for the next 2 years. And I was unhappy. That was the first disappointment that I got as I got into this town. And then when I got to try to register, the dorms were full. I had to find alternate living arrangements, and I had to go room with somebody I had just met. Had no idea who they were. Okay, I could deal with that. This was my first deal with the journey, because meeting with the journey, I might say, because at this point I learned that every stage of this journey is a part of the process of becoming, because I had to learn to deal with disappointment and had to learn to not give up because things did not look like what I thought they would look like. And every stage is there to teach you certain principles about life, because I was met with either three choices at this point: give up and go back, or stay and complain and fuss the rest of the way. We know those people that make any experience difficult because they complain and fuss all the way, and you wish they would just give up and go home. So that was an option. But the last option that I had was to stay and adjust and realize that this was just an opportunity for me to grow and shape my understanding and to change my perspective and keep my mind focused on the major goal, which was to get my education and keep walking on the journey of becoming. Maya Angelou has a favorite, quote that I love that says, if you don't like what you're looking at, change it. And if you can change it, change your attitude. So the only option I had in this case was just to change my attitude. And boy, am I glad I did. And I started to realize that, you know what, I'm going to maximize this stage, change my attitude, stay and understand that this is a small part of a big journey. As I lived in Corsicana for 2 years, it wasn't easy. Adjusting wasn't easy. It was hard. And I started to realize that life was my friend and that it was designed to direct me as I was living for the 2 years in this place. It started to show me who I was. Remember what we said, the journey is to reveal who you are. And I realized that through all the bad, what I termed bad and what I termed good experiences, all these were part of the process. And my experiences were customized to help me to move closer to becoming who I am. So I remember when I got a bad grade, when I would work 60 hours a week, when I would work at fast food restaurants, at Whataburger and all that stuff, and I'm tired and I'm angry and I'm exhausted. All this was building discipline and was building focus, because bills had to be paid, and these were the jobs that were available and I had to work them. Now remember, accountant, and now I'm behind the grill flipping a burger. And by the way, I can cook a mean burger. At least I gained something from that, But these were building blocks of my life. And I learned to accept what is and not try to run away from it, and just to learn to work through these difficult experiences that life gave me. Because we all know that life is difficult. But because something is difficult, it does not mean that it cannot be done. All it means that is I have to rise up to the level of difficulty that I have been exposed to, and develop the skills, the tools that are necessary for me to be able to navigate that level of difficulty. So that's just the nature of life. And when I figured out that life was difficult, I actually got peace, because I knew that all I had to do was figure out a way out of this. I had to figure out what was presented to me, because everything was customized for me and it's working for me. And some have dared to say that life is rigged in your favor. So I started to use all these experiences as I was in Corsicana, as I went through different levels of disappointments and different levels of hardships. Now, I didn't always start with this understanding, because there were times where I used unhealthy methods, because I was a 22-year-old boy growing and living in this, and I started to encounter a lot of things, because working at Whataburger created financial stress for me, because I couldn't afford to pay my bills. Tuition was always late, and sometimes you start to adopt unhealthy patterns, just drinking to get away from problems, which is not bad. It wasn't excessive drinking, but the idea of drinking to move from reality is actually not a good thing, because that's an unhealthy way to cope. And when you start partying all the time just to get some relief, that's a problem. But these are things that I started to adapt to, and I was stressed continuously. And also what was starting to be revealed by life was that I did not have the adequate life skills, nor the knowledge on how to manage money and how to navigate the level I'd been exposed to. So I had two choices: to learn, level up to the difficulty that was given to me, or I had to quit and just keep doing what I was doing. Well, like any 22, 23-year-old boy does, you keep doing what feels good and what's easy. So I landed myself more in more difficult problems. My credit was shot, cars getting repossessed, lights getting cut off, and just having a difficult experience with continuous stress. And I remember when I graduated from Corsicana, I moved away and I started working in Dallas, as I was going to now a 4-year college, because now I had my associates in computer information systems. I was working towards a bachelor's in finance. I thought my life was going to be better, but it wasn't better because my mentality had not changed. Life was teaching me and revealing all these things to me. Your mentality has not changed. You don't know how to manage money. You don't know how to do this, but I wasn't paying attention and I was not listening. So I should have welcomed personal growth because life was customized to show these things to me. And I was the only one who was going through these things in the particular way I was going through them, because it was my customized way that life was helping me see who I am. So it was about shifting my mindset to allow me to come closer to my purpose. So when all the consequences started coming to a head, and I remember sitting at the edge of my bed one day, and I just made bail from traffic tickets that had turned into warrants. I spent a night in downtown Dallas and Irving, and it was a very terrible experience for me. I was spooked. So I knew something had to change. And I was sitting and I was thinking, how could my life turn out to be like this? And I don't know sometimes why, when you're going through a hard time, you just sit in a dark room. I don't know what it is about that that's attractive about that. And I remember looking on the dresser that was to my left, and I could see a stack of bills that was there. You know that point where you stop opening bills because you know that I can't pay them and you know what's in there. And I don't know why people back in the days when we used to receive paper bills, they'll keep on sending and sending and sending and sending bills. And it looks like 7 versions of the same bill, which just created more stress for me. And I remember my car had been repoed. I was just living paycheck to paycheck. I was underemployed. At this time, I had a bachelor's in finance, and I had an associate's in computer information systems, and I was underemployed working in customer service. Nothing wrong with customer service, but with the level of education I had to be working somewhere else. This moment is the moment I sat down and I said, you know what, life, you won. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to learn more of what I'm doing. And I need to grow from this place. Now, this is the stage where courage comes in, because we all need courage to become who we are. I always knew there was something more to me, and thank God for my parents that always reminded me. And to the parents out there, I would say, please continuously remind your kids who they are, that they have something special in them, something to offer to this world. My parents named me Honour because they knew, or they suspected, but they always told me that we knew that you were going to contribute to this world something significant. And I heard this in my ear as I was growing up. And that kept me every time that I need to do better. I need to do better because I need to see this come to fruition. And that moment, I decided that I am going to go ahead and do something different. So I decided to go to the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas, and through the teachings of Bishop T.D. Jakes, I started to change the way I think, and I started to get more information, and I started to get explanation and understanding of why life had been the way it was. And it took courage for me to do something that I had never done, and even to believe in the vision that was inside of me. Even though my external circumstances did not match my internal, how I felt about myself, I decided to say, I'm gonna swim against the grain, and I'm gonna go against what society and culture said. It was easy for me to believe that, hey, your life is not going like it's how it's supposed to. Give up and stay, you will never amount to nothing. But the inner voice that believed there was something more to this, that same nudging that's always inside of me, that was at level 10, was talking and saying, it's time to go and get a teaching and do something different. And I had to keep on walking in this path because sometimes it's hard to walk when you're changing the inside and the outside does not yet quite match who you are. It requires courage and hope to know that one day, because if you owe a lot of people money, it's going to take a while to get out of that hole. And if you owe these traffic tickets, you got to do a lot of defensive driving. I did a lot of community service, and I had to pay a lot of people with my paycheck just trying to get it right. But I knew that this has an expiration date. And I had the courage to pick up the phone and say, hey, how much do I owe you? How much do I do this? And also, there is a fear that's associated with changing, because you are trying to become something you don't know how to be and something you've never seen that you just believe is inside of you. So it took a lot of courage to do that. And I had to swim against the grain. And boy, after years of working that plan, 2 to 3, 5 years, I started to realize that my life was getting better. I started to attract better friends, because anytime you change your life, you lose your friends, you lose people who you were used to hanging with, people you were comfortable with. I started to hang with people who were going somewhere. I started to enjoy a different rhythm of life. And my life started to feel good. I started to get promotions. Oh, first I got that job that I'd been looking for. I became an investor accountant. And in a space of 9 months, I was promoted from being an investor accountant, analyst 1, to a senior, and my paycheck doubled because my mind was changing. So it all starts with your mind first, in your head first. That's when you change it. And then after doing that, I ended up being promoted to a manager. Oh, life was good, man. I was on a happy trail, which came with another raise, right? Now I can pay my bills. Now I can eat a sandwich, and now I can rest with no issues. And I was learning to manage money. I was learning to grow. I was working on my character, my consistency, doing work and being disciplined, and hey, leave the drinking to the weekend, leave the partying to the weekend. You can do this. And I was starting to study my craft and to learn and to grow, and all these things, the teachings I was getting from T.D. Jakes, man, they were changing my life. And I finally made it all the way to a director of investor services. And I was like, I made it. And guess what? That nudge again inside of me started swelling up and kicking, and I started feeling like, man, what is this again? It's that feeling that there's more. So I thought that it was my job, because I remember I used to drive to work depressed and crying. But then I quit my job, became a consultant, and I did that for 5 years because I wasn't employed, but I learned how to run business during that. But again, that nudging wouldn't go away. But I started to notice something as I was working at the office. Everybody would come and talk to me. Everybody would ask me for what I thought, my opinion, and everything, including my manager at the time. And I looked at my life, and I seen this is something that had been a constant. So who you are has already been flashing throughout your whole life. It's the things that you've been attracted to. And I've been reading psychology books. I had subscribed to growth. I was a person who just liked information. So all these clues were there. And I decided to go back to school from a career in finance that was successful, where I was being compensated really well. And when I say really well, I was being compensated well. To walk away from that because I knew that I was unhappy, living life like I was told to versus who I am. And a lot of us have fallen into that trap where we've done what we've been told and where we've gone to school for what we've been told makes the most money. But in this case, it was about becoming me. I could not live another day without being me. So I went to school. And I got graduated and I started working part-time at a counseling center. And I was like, oh, I really enjoyed this. And eventually I opened Inside Fitness. And when I opened Inside Fitness, I started to work there and work with people. And I started to grow. And I started to realize that there are benefits of working and as you and becoming who you were created to you. And my existence in this world became meaningful. I had purpose. The Monday syndrome went away, where you're like, oh, I got the Monday blues. Oh, this is that. You know that talk around the water cooler? I had a meaningful existence. I woke up excited. I went to bed excited. I was always thinking about what my next step was. And I started to live outside of time. And I became happier. And I became a much more pleasant person to be around. And I started to attract people who were happier, who were going somewhere with their lives too. And that's what was beautiful about it. And I started to looking forward to living. I was always consistently planning and looking to the future and trying to figure out what's the next step? How can I make this thing better? And it wasn't work anymore. I was just happy. And the most important thing is I got back my time, because we all got time. Time is the only resource that we have. People pay you for the time you spend at work. That's why they pay you an hourly rate or calculate at 40 hours a week. Your salary is based off of that. But then I got back my time to do what I pleased with my time and to invest my time. And also when I started seeing people's lives change as they're working for, it started to give back to me. And it's fulfilling. I was fulfilled. My competition became, how can I be the best me? What more is inside me that I need to discover so I can fully become? And the most important thing is you get compensated for being you. People come and talk to me to hear what I think. My grandmother had this prophecy a long time ago. God bless her heart. Love that woman and I miss her. I wish she could be here today to see that her prophecy came to pass. She said people are going to travel from far to come and hear you speak. And they're going to hear what you think, and they have traveled. Around the world we get calls, here in the United States, in Africa, in Europe, everywhere. Canada, it is all just different people that are reaching out to hear what we have to say and what I have to think and what my perspective is. But people will compensate you for being you when you learn to become, because you are a solution to a complex problem the world has. If that's not an incentive, I don't know what else is an incentive to be you. Now, my question to you today, as I kind of come close to a close on this topic here, will you accept the call? The call from you, the true nature of who you were created to be. And just accept the call to become. Will you accept it today? Because this is a call that's out there. A call for you to become. I'll close and finish with this story here. You know, in Africa, we have a lot of proverbs and a lot of folk tales, and they're loaded with a lot of wisdom. And this story here came from Zimbabwe, and I don't know who curated this story, but you know, it's just go for the meaning because it meant so much to me. There was a shepherd who had about 100 sheep that he would herd every day. And they would go, you know, in the forest every day and, you know, do what sheep do, and shepherds herd them and all that. So one day he was out doing his shepherd thing and the sheep were eating. He heard a scream from a young animal. And this young animal kept on screaming. And then he eventually said, you know what? This is irritating. I gotta go and see what this is. And this, when he went there, caught in between a rock and a tree was this little lion, a little cub that was screaming for his mother. So the shepherd said, "Oh, I gotta run away because the mother must be somewhere here, because mothers don't play with their children." So eventually he stood on this rock just in case the lion would come so he wouldn't get him, but it kept on going on for an hour. And eventually he just came and took the little cub off and freed him and decided to take him home with him since it was wounded. So he nursed the little cub to health, and they said, "You know what, let me just herd it along with the sheep." So he started herding it with the sheep, and the lion started learning things that the sheep do, run and all these things, and just do whatever it is that they were doing. And he would feed it milk that he would get from the sheep. So the little lion was growing around the sheep. And as you know, it started to adapt all the behaviors of sheep. Being scared whenever an animal comes along, big animals, they all just run. And it started just trying to make noise like lion, like sheep, how sheep bleat. It was trying to bleat as well. Going blah. That sounds weird for a lion, right? And it was screaming like that. So this continued for years, and this lion became bigger and bigger and bigger. It was a male lion. So one day, the sheep were drinking at this river, and the shepherd was watching his sheep and the lion. Across the pond, another big lion came, the big daddy lions with all that hair around them. And it roared, and all the sheep ran away. Including this little lion, he ran away as well. And I'm sure the big daddy lion looked and said, "Boy, what is wrong with you running with that sheep?" But he ran, and they all hid. The next time, that big lion came again and roared whilst the sheep were drinking at the water. And this time, the young lion looked and said, "What's going on over there?" But when the lion roared again, the ground quivered and shook, and this lion ran away with the sheep again. The third time, the lion was drinking at the river with the sheep, and it looked in the water, and it saw its reflection. And its reflection looked like that big lion it had seen, and it ran away as well. And it wondered to itself, how come it didn't roar this time? Unbeknownst to this lion, it had seen its reflection. So the third time, the big daddy came again, fourth time now, and roared. And this lion dared to stand there. And that big lion came across the river and snatched a little lamb and bit into it and took that lamb to the young lion. And the young lion bit into it, and it woke up every instinct in that lion, and it started to self-actualize and realize that, hey, I am like this guy. I'm not supposed to be running like a sheep. I'm not supposed to be cowering away. This is who I am. I've got a roar in here. And the big lion roared and looked at the young lion to say, "Roar." And that lion started roaring timidly, and it started building inside of it until it let out a big roar. And by then, every instinct woke up in this young lion. And you know what happened? They left together. The next time this young lion was seen, it came with the older lion. And when they came together, they roared, and they were there to get some food. Now, why do I share this story? I have spent the last 12 years of my life working with people and walking with them. It's been a blessing. It's been an honor to do that. But at this second juncture, as I have become who I was created to be, and every instinct in me is functioning like I was created to, I'm here and I'm roaring for all those lions. Everybody who's ever worked with Inside Fitness, who's ever come to see me, everybody who's ever watched the tape, I am out for those people that are hungry. Those people who dare to become, who dare to be, who are accepting this call. Because this is a lost call for me to help and to walk with people as they become. This is my roar. Can you hear me? And how are you going to respond? Thank you.